A trembling question shatters Jungkook and Jimin's bond as hidden fears, unspoken love, and buried secrets erupt in a tense, emotional confrontation. "Do you still need me? Or am I just a burden now?" Jimin's voice cracked as the words escaped him, trembling in the dim backstage corridor where the echo of their final rehearsal still hung like smoke. His fingers curled into fists, knuckles white, as if the question itself hurt to hold. Jungkook froze mid-step, breath locking in his throat. Sweat traced the line of his jaw, still warm from the hours of practice, but suddenly he felt cold in the way a person feels when something precious slips through their fingers before they can catch it. The hallway lights buzzed faintly above them, flickering once as though sensing the tension trying to suffocate the space. Far in the distance, muffled voices of staff drifted like ghosts, but here, alone, everything felt painfully still. Jungkook swallowed hard. "Why would you even ask me that?" His voice trembled, thin, almost breaking. Jimin looked up, and his eyes were nothing like the star-bright warmth Jungkook always relied on. They were shattered glass, wounded, reflecting a storm Jungkook hadn't seen in time. His lips parted, but no sound came. He was trembling, as if he'd spent years holding something in and was now terrified of what would happen if he finally let it out. Jungkook stepped toward him, but Jimin stepped back, just one small movement, but enough to slice through Jungkook's chest like a blade. The smell of dust, sweat, and lingering stage fog clung to Jimin's hoodie as he pressed himself against the wall, like he needed support from anything but Jungkook. "I heard you," Jimin whispered. "Earlier. Talking to the manager. You said you'd be fine performing alone if I needed to step back." Jungkook's jaw clenched. He remembered the conversation, he remembered the exhaustion in his bones, the pressure burning down his spine, the desperation to shield Jimin from stress he didn't deserve. But he also remembered how easily words twisted when he wasn't careful. "That's not what you sounded relieved." Jimin cut him off, the tremor in his voice no longer subtle. "Like you didn't need me anymore." His breath hitched, eyes glistening. He hated crying. Jungkook knew that better than anyone. Jimin always hid his tears behind smiles, behind jokes, behind an armor of warmth so gentle even Jungkook forgot it was armor at all. But tonight, Jimin didn't hide. Tonight, the cracks showed. "Jimin," Jungkook whispered, taking another step. His hand lifted slowly, cautiously, as if reaching out to a wounded animal. "I wasn't relieved. I was terrified." Jimin blinked, confusion momentarily breaking through the pain, but Jungkook didn't give him time to retreat again. "I've been watching you push yourself until your body gives out," Jungkook said, his voice heavy and raw. "I've seen your hands shake during practices. I've seen how you flinch when the lights get too bright. I've heard you cry in the shower when you think no one can hear." Jimin's lips parted in shock. Jungkook's voice cracked. "And it kills me, Jimin. It kills me because I don't know how to save you without hurting you more." The corridor seemed to shrink around them. Jimin's breathing stuttered, uneven, like he was fighting a memory he didn't want Jungkook to see. "You think I don't want you?" Jungkook whispered. "God, Jimin, you're the reason I get back up every time I fall. You're the one person I can't lose." Jimin's chest rose sharply, as though Jungkook's words had pulled the air right out of him. "Then why did you say, because I thought letting you rest meant loving you," Jungkook said. "I thought stepping back meant protecting you. I never meant for you to think you weren't needed." Silence thickened between them, but not the cold kind. This one pulsed, alive, trembling like the air before a confession too heavy to undo. Jimin's voice finally broke again. "Then tell me, Jungkook, tell me honestly." His throat worked as he forced the words out. "Do you still need me?" Jungkook didn't hesitate, not this time. He closed the distance in one step, his hands trembling as they cupped Jimin's face, thumbs brushing the damp warmth beneath his eyes. Jimin let out a soft, broken breath, his body tensing then slowly melting under Jungkook's touch. "Need you?" Jungkook whispered, his forehead touching Jimin's. "I don't just need you. I breathe because you're here. I fight because you're beside me. I'm not whole without you." Jimin's eyes widened, shimmering. "You're not a burden," Jungkook said, voice trembling so violently it almost collapsed into a sob. "You're my anchor. My calm. My chaos. My everything." The words hung between them, burning bright, too honest to hide from. Jimin's legs nearly gave out. "Jungkook." His voice was barely a sound, more like a feeling escaping his lips. "Why does it hurt so much to hear that?" Because you've been carrying too much alone, Jungkook whispered. Let me carry some of it. Please. Jimin's breath shuddered, and then his forehead pressed fully against Jungkook's, their breaths mixing, their pain finally exposed under the harsh corridor lights for the first time that night. Jimin didn't pull away. I need you too, he whispered, voice trembling like something sacred breaking open. More than I should. Jungkook's hands tightened around him, not in possession, but in fear of losing him again, even for a second. We'll figure this out, Jungkook said softly. Not as idols. Not as performers. As us. As the two idiots who can't stop worrying about each other. Jimin let out a shaky laugh, half relief, half heartbreak. You're really bad at hiding your feelings, you know. So are you, Jungkook replied, his voice finally steadier. Jimin's eyes softened as he looked up at him, vulnerability still trembling around the edges, but hope beginning to seep through the cracks. And for the first time in weeks, Jungkook saw the real Jimin again, the one who fought storms with a smile, who loved too fiercely, who feared being unwanted more than anything. Jungkook brushed a stray tear from Jimin's cheek. I need you, he repeated, so softly it almost vanished into the air. Always. The tension in Jimin's body finally broke, and he leaned into Jungkook fully, letting himself be held. Letting himself believe. In the dim hallway filled with leftover echoes of their performance, two hearts beat unevenly, imperfectly, but together, and for now, that was enough. Jungkook was the first to hear the raised voices. He stiffened, still holding Jimin against him. Jimin lifted his head slowly, brows furrowing at the tension coiling through Jungkook's body. Stay here, Jungkook whispered, but Jimin caught his wrist. Kook, no. Don't go alone. A voice cut through the corridor before Jungkook could answer, cold, sharp, unmistakably dangerous. So this is where you've been hiding. Both their heads snapped toward the sound. Bang Siwon, one of the senior managers notorious for his iron grip and unforgiving discipline, stepped into the hallway with the slow, predatory calm of someone who knew the power he held. His gaze swept over their closeness, Jimin's red eyes, Jungkook's trembling hands still cupping Jimin's face, and something dark flickered in his expression. You two are rehearsing for a world tour, Siwon said, his tone deceptively soft. And instead of returning to practice, you're clinging to each other in a hallway like children caught doing something inappropriate. Jimin flinched. Jungkook felt his blood boil. We needed a break, Jungkook said, stepping slightly in front of Jimin without even thinking. Rehearsals went long. Jimin wasn't feeling well. Siwon scoffed. He never is lately. Jimin's breath hitched at the jab. Jungkook's fists clenched. Siwon's gaze narrowed, cold and calculating. And you, Jungkook. You know people talk when the two of you disappear together. Rumors grow. Questions spread. And his eyes hardened. I do not tolerate complications before a global comeback. It felt like a slap, one aimed at both of them. Jimin's voice broke through, soft but steady enough to make the air shift. We're not complications. Siwon raised an eyebrow. Really? Then explain why Jungkook begged for extra time alone with you earlier today. Why you both keep causing emotional scenes that affect your performance. Why choreographers complain about the tension. Jimin's cheeks burned, shame and frustration twisting inside him. Jungkook stepped forward, jaw tight. If you have a problem, talk to me. Don't talk to him like that. Funny, Siwon replied, since you are the problem. Jimin inhaled sharply. Jungkook moved instinctively, fury rising too fast to control, but then Siwon's attention shifted, zeroing in on Jimin, dissecting him without mercy. You're unstable, he said coldly. Your anxiety is affecting schedules. Your attachment to Jungkook is affecting him. And now you're pulling him into your mess. Tell me, Jimin, is that what you want your legacy to be? The world seemed to tilt. Jimin's face drained of all color. His fingers curled helplessly at his sides. Attachment mess, unstable, the words dug into old wounds Jimin hid from everyone except unwillingly. Jungkook's voice exploded before he could tame it. Stop talking like his a weakness. But Siwon didn't flinch. If he isn't, prove it. Because right now, what I see is an idol dragging his partner down. Jimin's breath caught. Jungkook saw the panic rising, saw the trembling return to Jimin's hands, saw that wounded look he thought he'd eased just minutes earlier, and something inside him snapped. Jimin is the reason I'm standing here, Jungkook said, voice low and shaking with rage. He's the reason I haven't collapsed under everything you pile on us. He's not dragging me down, he's the only thing keeping me together. Jimin's eyes widened, emotion crashing through him like a wave. Siwon's expression darkened. So you're admitting it? That your performance depends on him? Yes, Jungkook said without hesitation. Jimin's breath shuddered. Kook. But that doesn't make him a problem, Jungkook continued. It makes him my strength. Siwon exhaled once, slow and disappointed. This is exactly what I feared. Emotional dependency. Boundaries breaking. You can't function independently. You're too tangled up in each other. Jungkook stepped closer, shielding Jimin fully. We're not untangling. That's not your choice, Siwon said. I'll be reporting this. Jimin froze. Jungkook's heart stopped. Reporting what? Jungkook demanded. That you two need to be separated for the sake of the tour, the comeback, and the company. Different schedules. Different choreography sections. Minimal interaction until further notice. No, Jungkook said immediately, his voice cracking. You can't do that. Jimin stared at the floor, breathing uneven. Hyung, please. You don't understand. Siwon didn't waver. I understand perfectly. You two are becoming a liability. This ends now. He turned sharply, coat swaying behind him as he began to walk away. Jimin's voice came out broken and small. Please don't separate us. Siwon didn't turn around. Jungkook grabbed his arm. You can't take him away from me. Siwon finally faced them, expression unreadable. Watch me. He walked off, leaving silence so heavy it felt suffocating. Jimin collapsed to his knees before Jungkook could catch him. No, Jimin whispered, voice trembling violently. No, no, no. I can't do this without you. I can't. His hands shook as he pressed them against his chest. Why does everything fall apart the moment I think we're okay? Jungkook dropped beside him, pulling Jimin into his arms. Jimin clung to him desperately, fingers digging into Jungkook's shirt like he feared being torn away any second. I won't let them separate us, Jungkook whispered fiercely. I swear to you, Jimin. I'll fight anyone who tries. Jimin's tears soaked into Jungkook's shoulder. I'm scared, Kook. What if they're right? What if I'm ruining everything for you? You're saving me, Jungkook said, voice fierce and trembling. You always have. Jimin's sobs grew harder, rawer, each one a wound Jungkook couldn't heal fast enough. He held Jimin tighter, whispering into his hair. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. No matter what they do. But even as he said it, Jungkook felt the dread twisting deep in his gut, the terrifying realization that this fight was only beginning, and the world around them was ready to tear them apart. The company building was nearly empty, but the tension inside its walls lingered like trapped smoke, refusing to fade. Jungkook paced the length of the practice room, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. The mirror reflected a version of himself he barely recognized, eyes dark with fury, hair damp with sweat he didn't remember shedding, hands trembling with a rage he couldn't contain. Behind him, Jimin sat on the floor, knees pulled to his chest. He had stopped crying, but his silence was worse. His eyes were unfocused, distant, as if something inside him had cracked open and wouldn't close. Jimin, Jungkook breathed, stopping in front of him. Talk to me. Please. Jimin finally looked up. His voice was faint, like he'd left half of it in that hallway. What am I supposed to say? That I'm fine? I'm not. That it didn't hurt? It did. Every word. Jungkook knelt in front of him. I won't let them separate us. Jimin smiled, but the kind that wasn't a smile at all, just a broken shape of one. You can't fight the entire system, Kook. Watch me, Jungkook said. I'll burn the whole damn place down before I let them take you from me. Jimin's breath hitched, and something sharp flashed across his eyes, fear, longing, disbelief, all tangled together. He reached out slowly, brushing Jungkook's wrist with trembling fingers. You shouldn't say things like that, Jimin whispered. You make me believe things I shouldn't believe. Jungkook's voice dropped to a raw, trembling whisper. Believe this, then. You matter more than any stage. Any tour. Any reputation. Jimin's eyes softened but darkened too, shadows forming beneath his lashes. You don't mean that. I do. No, Jimin said quietly. You mean it right now. Because you're scared. Because you're angry. But tomorrow, when things get real, when the company steps in, you'll realize I'm just making everything harder for you. Jungkook grabbed his hand, holding it tight. You're not making anything harder. They are. Jimin shook his head. Maybe I should really step back. Don't, Jungkook said, voice cracking. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Jimin froze, the air thickened with something heavy, electric, dangerous. Then the practice room door swung open. Hannah, their dance director, stepped in. Her expression cut through the tension like a blade. She wasn't cruel like Siwon, but she wasn't the type to sugarcoat reality either. She took in their positions, Jimin on the floor, Jungkook gripping his hand, her eyes narrowing with concern and something else. Something that looked suspiciously like fear. You two need to get up, she said firmly. I need to talk to you before Siwon does more damage. Jungkook stood immediately, pulling Jimin up with him, refusing to let go of his hand. Hannah shut the door, exhaling sharply. He's furious. You know that, right? He's already filed a report to upper management. Tomorrow morning, they'll decide whether to modify your schedules or, she hesitated, seeing Jimin's face. Or separate your units entirely. Jimin swayed slightly. Jungkook steadied him. Hannah's gaze softened. I'm not here to take his side. But you need to understand how this looks from the outside. You two have always been close, but lately it's different. You disappear. You argue. You cling. Everyone sees it. And that makes people talk. Jimin lowered his gaze, shame creeping back into his posture. Jungkook stepped in front of him like a shield. Let them talk. We're allowed to be close. Hannah exhaled, pinching the bridge of her nose. Jungkook, it's not about closeness. It's about dependency. And right now, you two look like you can't function unless you're glued together. That scares them. It scares me. Jungkook's jaw tightened. We're fine. No, Hannah said sharply. You're not. Jimin flinched. Hannah softened her tone. Jimin, sweetheart, when was the last time you slept more than 3 hours? When was the last time you didn't panic before a performance? And Jungkook, when was the last time you breathed without worrying about him? Jungkook didn't answer. He couldn't. Jimin's voice cracked quietly. So what do we do? Hannah hesitated. There's a meeting tomorrow at 9. Siwon wants both of you there. He'll push for separation. But, if you want to fight it, you need a plan. Something better than emotion. Jungkook stepped closer. We'll fight. Together. Hannah studied them for a long moment, then sighed. Just, be careful. People are watching. She left the room as quickly as she'd entered. Jungkook and Jimin stood in the silence she left behind. Slowly, Jungkook turned to Jimin. Look at me. Jimin didn't. Jungkook gently lifted Jimin's chin. I'm not letting them take you from me. Tomorrow, in that meeting, I'm saying everything I need to say. I'm not hiding what you mean to me anymore. Jimin's breath stuttered. You can't say that. If you say too much, let them hear. Jimin shook his head, fear rising again. Kook, if you're too honest, they'll twist it. They'll use it against you. Against us. I don't care. But I do, Jimin whispered, voice breaking. I can handle them hurting me. I can handle losing everything. But not if you get hurt because of me. Not if they destroy you. Jungkook cupped Jimin's face, his thumb brushing the corner of Jimin's trembling mouth. I'm not afraid of them. I'm afraid of losing you. Jimin's eyes filled instantly, tears pooling until they spilled over without permission. Jungkook wiped them gently, each touch more tender than the last. You're shaking again, Jungkook whispered. I can't help it, Jimin said, breath trembling. Every time I think about tomorrow, I feel like I'm going to break. Then let me hold the pieces, Jungkook murmured. All of them. Jimin's knees weakened. He leaned forward until his forehead pressed against Jungkook's chest, his breath warm and uneven against Jungkook's skin. You promise? Jimin whispered, I promise. Jungkook wrapped his arms around him, pulling him in, grounding him, protecting him from the world that kept trying to take him away. Outside, the building creaked as the night deepened. Inside, their breathing slowly synced, two uneven hearts learning again how to beat in the same rhythm. But underneath the quiet, beneath the fragile peace of the moment, something darker pulsed, waiting because morning was coming, and the meeting would change everything. Jungkook jolted awake on the couch, still in the clothes he'd worn the night before. Jimin had fallen asleep curled against him, his head resting on Jungkook's shoulder, fingers still clutching the front of Jungkook's hoodie even in sleep, as if his body refused to let go even when his mind had shut down. The knock came again, harder this time. Jungkook's heart seized. Jimin stirred with a soft gasp, eyes snapping open instantly, as though fear had been waiting for the smallest sound to yank him out of sleep. "Kook, what time is it?" Jimin whispered, voice rough. "Too early," Jungkook murmured, brushing Jimin's hair back. "Go back to sleep." But the knock came again, followed by Hannah's muffled voice. "Jungkook." "Jimin. It's urgent." Jimin's entire body tensed. Jungkook felt it instantly. "Stay behind me," Jungkook whispered as he stood. Jimin reached for his wrist without thinking, stopping him for half a second. "Kook, don't let them see us like," Jimin swallowed. "Like we're clinging." Jungkook covered Jimin's hand with his own. "I'm not hiding you." He opened the door with Jimin standing just behind him, close enough that Jungkook could feel his warmth against his back. Hannah stepped in quickly and shut the door. Her expression was tight, worried, her voice low. "Siwon moved the meeting up," she said. "It's in 30 minutes. Jimin inhaled sharply. Jungkook's jaw locked. "That bastard," Jungkook muttered under his breath. "He wants us off balance." "That's not the worst part," Hannah said. "He requested additional members from the executive team, including Director Minute." Jimin's eyes widened. "No, not him." Jungkook felt his stomach drop. Director Minute was known for one thing: cutting emotional liabilities with surgical precision. If Siwon was ruthless, Director Minute was merciless. "What does he want?" Jungkook demanded. Hannah hesitated. "To evaluate your relationship." The word hit the room like a gunshot. Jimin stumbled back a step, breath shaking violently. Jungkook reached for him, but Jimin shook his head, pressing a hand to his forehead as though the room had tilted. "No," Jimin whispered. "No, no, no, he can't. He can't get involved. He'll separate us immediately." Hannah lowered her gaze. "Jimin, you need to be prepared for that outcome." "No," Jungkook snapped. "We're not accepting that." "Kook, be realistic," Hannah urged. "Your dynamic is too visible, too intense. And after last night, after you confronted Siwon, he's framing it as emotional instability. As dependency." Jungkook felt the air leave his lungs. "So he's weaponizing what he saw." "He always does," Hannah said. "And Director Minute will listen." Jimin moved to the window, staring out without seeing anything. His shoulders rose and fell rapidly, breath trembling, fingers flexing uncontrollably. Jungkook approached him slowly. "Hey. Look at me," Jungkook said softly. Jimin didn't. He whispered something instead, quiet, fragile, shaking. "Maybe they're right." Jungkook froze. "Right about what?" Jimin's voice cracked so softly it hurt. "That I'm dragging you down." "Don't say that," Jungkook warned. "I can't stop needing you," Jimin whispered. "And that's not fair to you. It's ruining everything. Your reputation. Your career. Your peace. And now they're going to punish you because of me." Jungkook stepped closer. But Jimin stepped back, eyes shiny and tormented. "And last night, when you held me, I didn't want to let go. Not even when I slept. I'm terrified you'll disappear, and that's not healthy." "Healthy?" Jungkook repeated, voice rising. "This isn't about healthy. This is about us surviving in a place that doesn't care about our health to begin with." Jimin flinched. "It's still my fault." "No," Jungkook said firmly. "It's their cruelty. Their control. Their fear of anything they can't manage." Jimin looked away. "Kook, if they ask you to choose, I won't choose them," Jungkook cut in instantly. Jimin's breath caught. "You have to." "The hell I do." "Kook," Jimin whispered, eyes filling with tears again, "I'm begging you, don't ruin your future for me." Jungkook grabbed Jimin's shoulders, pulling him close, forcing him to meet his eyes. "My future means nothing if you're not in it." Jimin sucked in a shattered breath. Hannah shifted awkwardly but did not interrupt. Then another knock. This one didn't wait. The door opened without permission. Siwon stood there, Director Minute beside him. Min's eyes swept over the room immediately. The couch. The two of them standing close. Jimin's red eyes. Jungkook's hand still on Jimin's arm, his mouth curved, not into a smile, but into something colder. Interesting, Director Minute said. You two are already confirming what Siwon reported. Jungkook moved protectively in front of Jimin. We were talking. That's all. Director Minute hummed. Talking. Clinging. Arguing. Collapsing into each other. The specifics don't matter. The pattern does. Jimin's breath hitched audibly. We should begin, Minute said. Now. Not in the boardroom. Here is fine. Jungkook stiffened. No. If you want to interrogate us, do it properly. Not in our dorm. This isn't an interrogation, Minute said. This is an assessment. That's worse, Jimin whispered. Min's gaze snapped to him. Exactly. Jungkook stepped closer to Jimin, practically shielding him with his entire body. But Min's attention didn't waver. Step aside, Jungkook, Minute said. I need to speak to Jimin first. No, Jungkook said. Yes, Minute countered. Unless you want me to note in the report that you are obstructing an internal investigation. Jungkook's jaw flexed. You're twisting everything. Step aside. Jimin tugged Jungkook's sleeve gently. Let me. No, Jungkook said again, voice shaking with fury. You're not doing this alone. You're making it worse, Jimin whispered, voice trembling. Please. Let me breathe. Jungkook stared at him, torn, devastated, then slowly stepped back, but only far enough to give Jimin space, not far enough to stop protecting him. Director Minute approached Jimin slowly. Clinically, Jimin, he said. Do you feel your relationship with Jungkook compromises your professionalism? Jimin swallowed, eyes darting to Jungkook. Answer, Minute ordered. Jimin's hands shook. No. He helps me. Minute nodded once. Do you depend on him to function? Jimin froze. Jungkook took a step forward immediately. Don't answer that. Minute raised a hand. Another word and you're removed from the room. Jungkook stopped but trembled with barely controlled anger. Jimin inhaled slowly, painfully, as if every breath cut him. Jimin whispered, voice tiny. I don't depend on him to function. We support each other. That's all. Avoiding the question, Minute said. He took one step closer. Do you feel anxious when separated from Jungkook? Jimin's throat tightened. His eyes burned. Silence stretched so thin it hurt. Jungkook watched him break apart in slow motion. Jimin, Minute said coldly. Answer. Jimin's voice trembled. Yes. Jungkook felt his world snap. He surged forward again, but Hannah grabbed his arm, holding him back with surprising strength. Min's expression turned sharp. Then you are a liability. Both of you are. Jimin's knees weakened. Jungkook lurched toward him, but Minute held up a hand. Enough, he said. I've seen what I need to see. Effective immediately, Jimin covered his mouth, eyes wide with terror. Jungkook's heartbeat went wild. Min's voice dropped into a tone that promised destruction. You will be separated in all professional contexts. Jimin let out a small, broken sound. Jungkook's chest tightened so violently he gasped. And if either of you violates the new boundaries, Minute continued, I will suspend you both from activities indefinitely. Jimin collapsed into a sitting position, shaking hard. Jungkook fell to his knees beside him, gripping his shoulders, refusing to let him fall completely. Don't do this, Jungkook begged, voice hoarse. Please. Don't take him from me. Minute remained unmoved. This is final. And with those words, he turned and walked out, Siwon close behind him. The door shut. Silence suffocated the room. Jimin trembled uncontrollably through Jungkook's arms, unable to speak, unable to breathe. Jungkook held him tightly, so tight it hurt, whispering into his hair. I'm here, Jungkook repeated, voice breaking. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. But for the first time, neither of them knew if that would still be true tomorrow. Or if the world had finally succeeded in tearing them apart. The lights above the empty rehearsal hall flickered like they, too, were holding their breath. Jungkook stood alone in the center of the room, chest rising and falling with uneven breaths, knuckles bruised from hitting the practice floor moments earlier. His reflection in the mirror looked wild, cornered, almost feral with worry. He wasn't prepared for the door slamming open so hard it echoed like a gunshot. Jimin stormed in, sweat still glistening along his temple as if he had run all the way there. His voice cracked before he even finished the first word, a tremor that cut deeper than any accusation. "Why did you leave?" he demanded, breathless. "Why do you keep shutting me out when you know I'm the one who stays?" Jungkook's eyes lifted slowly. The air around them tightened, thick with everything left unsaid between nights of unspoken longing and days spent pretending nothing was wrong. His voice came out low, roughened by guilt. "I told you I didn't want to fight. You walked out," Jimin countered sharply, stepping close enough that Jungkook could see the hurt flashing behind the anger. "That's not wanting peace. That's running." A shiver ran down Jungkook's spine. He hated how Jimin could see straight through him, hated the way it made him feel exposed, helpless, painfully real. Jimin moved another step closer, tilting his head with that instinctive gentleness he had even when furious. "Look at me," he whispered. Jungkook forced himself to meet his eyes. There was fire there, bright, consuming, but beneath it was fear. Fear that Jungkook recognized too well, because it was the same fear that had been suffocating him for months. Jimin's voice softened but didn't lose its edge. "If something's wrong, why won't you tell me? Do you think I can't handle it?" "It's not that," Jungkook muttered, but his throat tightened, betraying every lie he was trying to hold together. "Then what?" Jimin asked, stepping so close Jungkook could feel the heat of his breath. "What are you so afraid of?" The truth pressed against Jungkook's ribs like it wanted to break them. He had secrets, old scars disguised as habits, buried memories that clawed their way up whenever he got too close to someone. Jimin had become too important, too necessary, too terrifying. "I'm afraid of losing you," Jungkook finally admitted, the words shaking like they had been dragged out of him. "Every time I think about relying on you too much, I panic." Jimin blinked, taken aback, pain flickering across his face. "So instead of letting me in, you push me away. You think that hurts less?" Jungkook flinched. "I don't know how to need someone without ruining everything." Silence pulsed between them, intense and electric. Jimin's expression softened in a way that made Jungkook want to collapse. He reached out slowly, carefully, like touching something breakable. "You won't ruin me," Jimin whispered. "You'll ruin yourself before you ever ruin me." Jungkook felt something in his chest crack open, but then Jimin's voice shifted, quiet but shaking, as he asked the question that rewrote the air around them. "Do you still need me, Jungkook?" The words echoed, fragile, terrified, laced with a kind of vulnerability Jungkook never imagined Jimin would show so openly. It hit Jungkook like a blow Jungkook swallowed hard. "More than anything." Jimin looked stunned, eyes widening like he hadn't expected that honesty. His breath stuttered as he whispered, "Then why do I feel like you're slipping away from me?" Jungkook stepped forward, hands trembling as he cupped Jimin's face. "Because I'm scared. Because wanting you this much feels like standing on the edge of a storm. Because every time you look at me like this, I don't know how to breathe." Jimin's breath hitched, his eyes darting across Jungkook's face, searching, drinking in every flicker of sincerity. "Then don't breathe alone," he said softly. "Not when I've been right here, waiting for you to trust me." Jungkook's voice cracked. "I'm trying." "Try harder," Jimin whispered, not cruel but deeply hurt. "Because if you walk away again, I won't chase you this time." "I can't." The fear in Jungkook's chest surged, raw and desperate. "Don't say that." Jimin stepped back, and the loss of warmth felt like a punch. "Then show me I matter to you. Not in a song, not in a stage performance, not in empty promises, show me here, right now." Before Jungkook could respond, Jimin turned away, rubbing his palms over his face. His shoulders trembled with something dangerously close to breaking. "I feel like I'm fighting for us alone," he confessed. "And I'm terrified I'm the only one who still believes in what we are." Jungkook moved behind him slowly, cautiously, letting silence speak for several long seconds before his voice slid out, rough and trembling. "You're not the only one," he whispered. "I've just never been good at letting myself be seen." Jimin lowered his hands, turning his head slightly as if trying to decide whether he could trust those words. "Then let me see you." Jungkook exhaled shakily. "All right." Jimin turned fully this time, their faces inches apart, the air vibrating with intensity. "All of you." Jungkook nodded, voice small. "All of me." Jimin's eyes softened, filling with something warm and devastating. Then stop running. Stay. Jungkook didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, pulled Jimin against him, holding him like the world outside no longer existed. For the first time in months, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to, and for the first time in months, Jungkook didn't feel like he was falling apart. He felt like he was being held together. Their breaths synced. Their fears loosened. And for one fragile, powerful moment, the world went quiet, but neither of them knew that the storm they feared was only beginning, one that would test every truth they had spoken tonight, and every weakness they had tried to hide from each other. The rehearsal hall was silent except for the echo of their breathing as the night deepened, the city lights outside painting soft reflections across the polished floor. Jungkook still held Jimin, but Jimin's fingers slowly loosened their grip on the back of his shirt, sliding down until only the tips remained, as if he were afraid that releasing him fully would make everything they just said dissolve into smoke. Jungkook felt it instantly, the subtle shift, the hesitation, and he stepped back just enough to see Jimin's face. The dim lights traced the exhausted tremor beneath his eyes, the raw emotion that hadn't had time to heal. Jungkook's voice came out low. "Are you pulling away again?" Jimin's lips parted, but the answer wasn't immediate. "I don't know what I'm doing," he confessed, voice soft but jagged at the edges. "I want to believe you. I want to trust what you said. But my mind keeps asking what happens tomorrow. What happens when you get overwhelmed again?" Jungkook swallowed, shame crawling up his spine. "I meant every word." "I know," Jimin whispered. "That's what scares me. That you mean it, but still might break me without realizing it." The words hit Jungkook with the force of a punch. He stepped closer, brushing his knuckles gently down Jimin's arm, a hesitant, yearning touch. "I'm not going to hurt you again." "You can't promise that," Jimin said, this time not with anger but a weary sadness that made Jungkook's chest constrict. "You can promise to try. And I can decide if that's enough." Jungkook's breath trembled. "Then let me show you." Jimin looked up, eyes shining, conflicted. "How?" Jungkook didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for Jimin's hand and placed it over his own heartbeat, the steady rhythm thudding beneath his skin. "By letting you see everything I usually hide. By not pretending I'm fine when I'm coming apart inside. By not letting fear control me anymore." Jimin's fingers curled slightly, feeling the pulse, grounding him. The intimacy of the moment wasn't loud or heated, it was raw, vulnerable, and dangerously honest. "That's a start," he murmured. Jungkook exhaled in relief. "Then stay with me tonight. Not to fix anything. Just be here." Jimin blinked, startled by the directness. "Here? In the studio?" "No," Jungkook said quietly. "Somewhere I can talk without running from my own voice." Jimin hesitated, torn between caution and longing. "Where did you have in mind?" Jungkook held his gaze for a long moment, then whispered, "The roof." Jimin froze, surprised. It wasn't the place that shocked him, it was what it meant. Jungkook only went to the roof when something inside him was too heavy to say anywhere else. Jimin nodded slowly. "Okay." They didn't speak as they left the rehearsal hall. The quiet between them wasn't empty, it was thick, dense with anticipation and the lingering heat of everything they had confessed. Their footsteps echoed down the empty hallway, the cool air brushing past their skin as they reached the final door leading to the rooftop. Jungkook pushed it open, and the night air washed over them instantly, crisp and carrying the faint scent of rain that hadn't yet fallen. The city sprawled below, glowing with neon veins of traffic and life. Jimin stepped closer to the edge, resting his hands on the railing, letting the wind lift his hair slightly. Jungkook watched him from behind for a moment, the sight stirring something deep and fierce inside him. When he approached, he stood close enough that their shoulders touched, warmth meeting the chill of the night. "Jungkook," Jimin said quietly, eyes fixed on the city lights. "Do you know why your silence hurts me so much?" Jungkook waited, heart pounding. "Because I'm the one person who has always stayed," Jimin whispered, voice trembling but steady. "Through every downfall, every panic, every moment you wanted to disappear. I stayed. Even when you didn't ask me to." Jungkook's throat tightened painfully. "I never wanted you to leave." "That's not the same as letting me in," Jimin replied, turning to him with emotion blazing in his eyes. "You want me near, But you don't let me close. And I don't know how to exist in that space anymore. Jungkook felt the guilt crack through him. He reached forward, brushing his fingers against Jimin's wrist. You're the only person I want close. Then why does it feel like you're always disappearing? Jimin demanded softly. His voice wasn't angry, it was pleading, aching in a way that made Jungkook's lungs seize. Why do you make me feel like I'm constantly chasing you? Jungkook stepped closer until their chests nearly touched, his voice trembling. Because I'm scared you'll see parts of me I don't know how to handle. Jimin held his gaze. Then let me handle them with you. Jungkook's breath hitched. His hand rose to Jimin's cheek, the warmth of his palm grounding both of them. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. Then fight for me, Jimin murmured. Not with grand gestures. Not with promises. With honesty. Jungkook leaned his forehead against Jimin's, eyes fluttering shut as he whispered, I'm trying, Hyung. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The rooftop wind curled around them, carrying the faint sounds of the city far below. Then Jimin moved first. He slipped his arms around Jungkook's waist, pulling him close, not forcefully but with a quiet desperation. Jungkook buried his face in Jimin's shoulder, exhaling shakily as if the contact alone was enough to undo him. Don't run, Jimin murmured into his ear. I won't, Jungkook breathed. Not tonight. Not from you. Their hearts slowed, synced, steadied for the first time. The fear didn't rise between them like a wall, it settled like something they could climb over together, and under the wide, restless sky, they stood in a silence that felt more like a beginning than an end. The sky above them deepened into a darker shade of indigo, the city softening into distant constellations of scattered lights. Jimin stood with Jungkook in the center of the rooftop, the cold air wrapping around them like a final test of resolve. Jungkook felt Jimin's heartbeat against his own, steady, grounding, quietly insistent, as if reminding him of every moment he had almost lost this, and every moment he still could if he wasn't careful. Jungkook pulled back just enough to see Jimin's face. The shadows softened his features, but the vulnerability there was unmistakable. Jungkook lifted a trembling hand and brushed a strand of hair away from Jimin's forehead. I don't want fear to decide anything for me anymore, Jungkook said. And I don't want it to decide anything for us. Jimin swallowed, the movement small but telling. Then say what you want, Jungkook. Not what you're afraid of losing. Say what you truly want. Jungkook took a breath that felt like stepping into a new life. I want you. Not just as someone I lean on when I'm breaking. Not just as someone who catches me. I want you as the person I choose to face everything with. I want you to stay, because I'll stay too. Jimin's eyes shone, softening in a way that made the world feel unbearably tender. Then stop pushing me away, he whispered. I will, Jungkook promised. I'm done running. Jimin stepped closer, lifting Jungkook's chin with gentle fingers. And I'm done assuming you don't care. We've both been afraid. But we don't have to be afraid alone. Jungkook's chest loosened with something warm, overwhelming. He leaned forward until their foreheads touched again, not desperate this time, not frantic, but steady, intentional, choosing. Jimin's breath mingled with his, soft and warm, a quiet confession on its own. Jungkook's voice trembled when he said, Hyung, do you still need me? Jimin's smile was small but devastating. I never stopped. The final wall between them fell silently. Jungkook wrapped his arms around Jimin and held him tightly, not with fear but with certainty. Jimin melted into him with a soft exhale, relief washing through his body as he clung back. The world around them faded, the noise, the doubts, the unspoken wounds. All that remained was the solid warmth of the person they had nearly lost, the steady rhythm of breathing that finally matched. Jungkook whispered into Jimin's hair, thank you for not giving up on me. Jimin tightened his hold. Thank you for finding your way back. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, as the wind softened and the first hint of dawn brushed the edge of the sky. It wasn't a dramatic ending. It wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, fragile, healing, the way real endings often are. When they finally stepped back from each other, their hands stayed intertwined. Jimin looked at Jungkook with a tenderness that carried every argument, every fear, every moment of almost losing each other. So, what now? Jungkook squeezed his hand, steady and sure. Now we start over. Together. Jimin nodded, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Together. They walked back toward the rooftop door, fingers still laced, shadows stretching behind them like two paths finally merging into one, and as the first morning light touched their faces, it felt less like an ending and more like the beginning they had both been too afraid to reach until now.